So let's get to the actual topic. Flavored e-cigarettes. How did we get here? Now there's two major points that I want to discuss. One point being the health, right? What impact does do e-cigarettes have on health? How do they compare to smoking regular cigarettes? And then also, what legal implications are there to shop owners, and can they potentially challenge this, or even perhaps smokers themselves who may be damaged by first Michigan as a state banning e-cigarettes or flavored e-cigarettes, and now we know Trump administration is who also declared this a national emergency, is going to be coming out with a rule putting a similar ban on flavored e-cigarettes. So there's going to be a health aspect of it, and then which allows them to declare this a which allows the government to declare this as a health emergency or a national emergency or a state emergency versus the second aspect of, all right, what legal authority does the state of Michigan or the federal government have to ban or have such a wide ban on a product that not only takes away the freedoms and rights of individuals to inhale what they want to inhale, but also significantly impacts a lot of shop owners, a lot of smoke shop owners, gas stations. I have friends who own and acquaintances who own multiple different type of stores, all the way from different franchises who offer these products to the moms and pop stores, and they're all going to be significantly impacted, especially the shop owners who, from what I'm hearing, they are going to take a hit of more than 50% of their revenue. Now it remains to be seen whether the people who bought flavored e-cigarettes will maybe go to the black market, or perhaps will start using the non-flavored e-cigarette. So it may not be a 50% impact on their revenue, but the predictions don't look so good for them. There's definitely going to be a loss. How much? That remains to be seen. Okay, so first, what do we know about what e-cigarettes are doing to children in particular? Because that's what the government is focusing on. And I'll explain later in the legal session of why they want to be narrowly focusing on a specific area like children and flavored cigarettes, because essentially it allows the government to get away with certain bans as long as it is narrowly tailored to a specific group, and also is narrowly tailored to a specific purpose. A broad ban which doesn't necessarily correlate directly to the intent of the law, or has a adverse impact even if the intent is a good intent, those have a higher likelihood of getting rejected or being challenged in court, and the plaintiffs being successful in challenging such bans. To start off, let's take a look at some data from the FDA's website, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Uh, Obviously, if the Attorney General or the government's intent is to put a ban on this product, there may be certain bias to their um, what their stats show. That being said, you would like to assume, and I will assume for the purposes of this podcast, that the most unbiased data is likely available on FDA.gov. Yeah, you can argue maybe some other nonprofits who have no particular leaning and are medically backed by scientists may have even more of an objective point of view. But for now, we'll stick to the data from the FDA's website. So one stat that's not in dispute, that is not being disputed even by the advocates for e-cigarettes or flavored e-cigarettes, is that use among children um, of middle, sorry, not children, but middle school students as well as high school students has been increasing substantially from 2010 till 2018. Stats are showing that the use among middle school students has gone up from 0.6% to 3.3%. That's from 11 to 2017. And among high school students, from 1.5% in 2011. If you keep in mind that e-cigarettes are fairly new, and 2011 is probably a good year where to look at when they were introduced to the market at large. People really started noticing them. So 2011, 1.5% of high school students were using it. Now we're at 2017, and the data shows 11.7%. So the increase has been substantial, right? Uh, that's something you don't want, and the trajectory seems to be continuing to go towards a continuing increase among middle school and high school students. That data is not being challenged. The challenges are in regards to what health impact does that have on high school or middle school students? The argument being from the advocate's point of view that look, the children who are doing it illegally, they're doing it illegally. We have laws that actually, honestly, were not even enforced or truly uh, embedded into our law books until 18. That you shouldn't sell to under 18 years old children because e-cigarettes were such a new topic and new product at that time. But regardless, the argument there is by the industry is that look, we don't sell it to them illegally. They're obtaining it illegally, and they're going to obtain whether it's e-cigarettes or regular cigarettes illegally. So we can't control that. On the other end, the government argues, look, you're offering these flavored products, which is a reason why they're increasing their use. If this was not flavored, the middle school students and high school students will likely not use your product and perhaps completely avoid any cigarettes or any tobacco. So there's, that we don't have the data or the stats to look at this to see if that's true or not. It remains to be seen after the ban goes in effect, uh, what that data proves. So there's these counterpoints there that look, we are putting this ban up because it's increasing the use among middle school students and high school students, and it's because it's flavored. On the other hand, it's saying, look, the people who are obtaining it illegally, they're going to obtain it illegally regardless. The second issue is, okay, well, people who are smoking it, are they being impacted or harmed perhaps more than what regular cigarettes will impact you? So the benefit of vaping is it actually has a lot less, substantially lot less chemicals in it versus a regular cigarette, which, from my understanding, these chemicals are needed to make it actually light up and properly become a smokable product, essentially. That's probably a really bad explanation, and I probably will get uh, called out by whomever listens to this podcast about how horrible my explanation was, but that's what I'm going with it. On the other hand, the amount of tobacco someone inhales from a cigarette to e-cigarette is actually worse for e-cigarettes. So people who advocate for e-cigarettes also haven't been able to overcome that point that look, you're just inhaling a lot more tobacco, which is likely to get you hooked more so than a regular cigarette. I don't know if that's true or not, but the point being, you are inhaling a lot more smoke. Tobacco is not good for you, and it does damage you. There are studies. There's a study specifically done out of the UK that has been replicated as well. Now, keep in mind, this is a one-off study. Usually, a scientific community does not look at something as a fact until there's mass amount of studies coming to the same or near the same conclusion. Then it becomes a scientific fact. This study, which is a one-off study that I believe has been replicated once or twice, showed the amount of smoke that goes into your body, what that does to your lungs, and essentially the scientists showed an image of brown lungs or brown insides after regular cigarettes were inhaled into this product, this tube that they showed what it did to the tube, versus e-cigarettes, which apparently was clear smoke. So that to me is maybe there's a point to it, but to me seems somewhat disingenuous, just because yeah, colors look bad, but at the same time, just because something does not have a color to it doesn't mean it's not damaging you. Okay, so that's one point. The second, or that's the second point, the amount of smoke you're inhaling, the amount of damage that's causing you. So the third major health implication is that, um, or the argument there is that, look, the e-cigarettes that have existed thus far um, can be further controlled. Meaning, look, you don't have to outright ban it. Perhaps we reduce the amount of tobacco that can be consumed. Perhaps there's other ways to look at it. But we don't need to ban the flavored e-cigarettes. Uh, and let's look at it more narrowly. The government is saying no, we need to outright ban it. In Michigan, it's actually a temporary ban. So the idea is there's going to be more studies done and more knowledge gained about what's truly happening. And the point being, and here's the major point, that this is the biggest point that's in favor of the e-flavored industry, is that so far there has been more than 450 possible cases of severe lung injuries that are related to, or seems to be related to, e-liquids and e-cigarettes. And they're in 33 states they've been reported. There's also been various deaths. I believe at this point the death toll is more than 10. I hope I'm not butchering those stats, but I believe it's more than 10. My original stats said 8, but I believe since I pulled those, I've heard of a couple other deaths that have occurred in the media. So what exactly is it in e-cigarettes that's causing people to get so sick and die? We know, okay, it has more tobacco, sure, but what else is it? So the tobacco industry is arguing the people who have actually gotten sick or have essentially died. There is a real argument to be made that the data or the autopsies and the health records show these people were actually smoking not a legal product. It was actually, this product actually had THC in it, which is weed essentially, which is not legal, which was not being legally sold, and it was a DIY product, meaning a do-it-yourself product, probably created under the radar, under the FDA's approval. That's not a right way of saying it. Essentially, the FDA didn't approve it, is what I meant to say. So the vitamin E that's contained in this is really the focus of these arguments. And vitamin E is not something that is a product that's included in regular e-cigarettes, but it's something that's being found in these THC-laced DIY cannabis products, which seem to be the true cause of injuring or hurting different subjects that have been tested thus far, that have been included in these studies cited by the governments, whether state government or federal government. That's a legitimate argument, and actually, from what I've seen, the FDA, nor has the state of Michigan, has outright stated that, look, that's false. We have conducted further studies. It's just not the vitamin E that's present in these THC products. It's all e-flavored cigarettes. So there's a legitimate point that what should be controlled, what should be looked at, and what should be targeted is this product that's being sold not in the free market, not in the open market, legal markets is what I meant, but something that's being sold under the table, something that's not being legally sold. So if that's the case, and you ban what is currently legally sold, perhaps there's going to be an increase in this illegal product, and perhaps there's going to be more vitamin E laced e-cigarettes out there that is going to end up causing more harm than good. So I completely see that argument. Now, at least in Michigan, and then I'm assuming federal government's going to have to do the same. There's going to be there's going to be additional studies, and we're going to learn what happens with that, what happens with the conclusion, or at least the assertion by the industry that you are targeting the wrong people. You're not targeting the legal market. You're targeting this THC laced e-cigarettes that is already not legal and not being sold at our shops. And as I transition now actually over to the legal aspect of it, I think that I'll just start off by saying the best arguments that's going to be available to anyone, whether it's consumer or shop owners who want to either remove this ban completely or fight against this ban, or at least reduce the type of ban it is, meaning maybe the target should be not all flavored cigarettes, maybe similar to regular cigarettes, menthol survives and a couple other flavors survive. Or on the other end, let's make sure we somehow only enforce the laws that already exist and see whether there is going to be any negative impact of non-vitamin E related products. So there's going to be arguments out there. It just remains to be seen truly what happens in the next 6 months. I think we'll know the answers. And with that being said, let's transition over to the legal aspect of this. So the first line of argument stems from the Fifth and 14th Amendment. The Fifth Amendment, in this context, essentially protects your right to due process and protection of property, while the 14th Amendment essentially says the same rights as someone has as a U.S. citizen should also be protected. They should also be protected against the same rights if the state tries to take those rights away. So the same rights apply to states as well. So with that being said, in the past, and we don't have much to look at beyond the cigarette industry. So we can look at the cigarette industry because the same exact ban actually was enforced and survived almost all challenges when it came to banning flavored cigarettes, because there was a time where flavored cigarettes were advertised, they were sold openly, and people were allowed to smoke it. Now, one difference being, and this is where there may be something that that can survive when it comes to e-flavored cigarettes, is menthol did survive. All other flavored cigarettes got banned except for menthol. So perhaps maybe there's something over there that people can argue about. Now, I think we can all agree the cigarette lobby is a lot richer and bigger than e-cigarettes. Now, I know a lot of the regular cigarette lobbyists also got involved in e-cigarettes, so maybe there is some overlap. But right now, as it stands in general, there's a lot more money in regular cigarettes. There's backing a lot of the legislature versus e-cigarettes. So the argument under the Fifth and 14th Amendment was essentially that, look, this can be made by shop owners primarily. That look, the smoke-free the e-cigarette ban, specifically on flavored e-cigarette, discriminates against business owners. That we have equal protection of the law. We have a right to our property, and we have been denied that due process right based upon these laws that have been passed. Now, both arguments, whether it's the fundamental right of someone to sell e-cigarettes or to buy e-cigarettes, both arguments are ill-conceived, because they're essentially arguing that, look, these discriminate against smokers and business owners. But the reality is smokers and business owners are not what we call a protected class. To have rights, for example, men, women, race, These are protected rights that exist. Um, Meaning, if a state or federal government try to ban or try to pass laws that said, look, we're going to either directly discriminate against females, or sorry, let's just say males, and or if the law, even though it wasn't passed to directly discriminate against males, had that effect of discriminating against males, maybe that will be struck down. Now, speaking in generalities, that's why I always use the word maybe. And I also use the example of males, which has not historically been really tested too much. It's mainly been females based upon the history of not just our country, the entire world. So you get the idea. Smokers, you're not a protected class. Business owners who sell smoke products are not a protected class. So you cannot make that argument that, look, we are losing a fundamental right without due process. So it just fails. It's been argued before, and it failed every single time. Uh, the the other interesting arguments that have been raised, and sometimes I laugh slightly because it's it's hard to say some of these arguments with a straight face, but a creative lawyer, a good lawyer who make these arguments have won, whether or not, if even if not in this context, in other contexts, and winning certain type of arguments that on its face just seem completely horrendous and seem like they don't make any sense. And I'll get to that, and I'll explain why that is. Another line of argument stems from right of privacy, that we have a right to conduct business as we wish. We have a right to smoke what we wish, and the government has no place to infringe upon our right of privacy. Um, this kind of falls apart for the same reason as we previously discussed. There is no fundamental right to smoke. So this idea that somehow your privacy or what you do in your privacy is somehow being uh, infringed upon, it just doesn't exist. Secondly, no one's telling you what you can or you cannot do in your own privacy. The idea is the sale is being banned, not what you do with the product you create on your own and consume by yourself. It's actually very similar in some of the raw milk laws, where the government can get involved in the commerce aspect of it when you sell it to the market, openly to other people and for a profit. But if you want to consume raw milk, without putting it through the proper process, whether it's an ultra pasteurized or pasteurized, whatever it may be, and you just want to drink raw milk and you believe you have a fundamental right to do so, and that somehow is great for your health. I don't know if it is or it's not, but I'm just saying if that's what you believe, you're entitled to do so. But you can't sell that. You can't make money off that, and that's when the government does get involved. So that argument about privacy fails. Another argument, it's another First Amendment argument, is that individuals have a First Amendment right to associate with each other. Meaning the government should not unjustifiably interfere with an individual's choice to maintain some sort of private relationship. So the argument being similar to marriage, that, hey, look, I have a right to associate with others, and we like to partake in smoking, and by you banning this product, the sale of it, that fundamental right will be taken away, and we won't be able to associate as we wish. I think the argument, I think everyone knows why that argument has failed in the past whenever it has been raised, because this law is not banning how you associate what you do. It goes back to what I just discussed. This law is saying, look, you can't buy it from these shop owners. So essentially that fails too. Sorry about that. I just took a sip of water. Didn't want to sip it on the didn't want to introduce you to me drinking water and shared that. I'm sure no one wants to hear me drinking water. So I'm going through these arguments right now, and everyone's saying, "Look, you seem like everything you're going through, the arguments are failing. There's no way any of this works. So what is the upside? Are there any rights? Are there any arguments that are available to any of these shop owners who are going to suffer substantial harm?" Well, maybe the potential argument, and this is a part of the law that I'm actually familiar with. I've argued in favor of my clients for certain governmental action is what is considered a taking. Uh, uh, that is the right that the government shall not take someone's property without just compensation. Now, under the current standards, there's different type of takings that occurs. If government comes in, they essentially take your property. For example, if Trump wants to build a wall and he has to take someone's property for the benefit of the public, you still have to give him just compensation under the Fifth Amendment. There's another type of taking which is called partial taking or categorical taking, depending upon which state you're in, or partial regulatory taking, which says, look, even though you're not outright taking away my property, but based upon the laws you are making, my use of this land, whether it's you're a shop owner who owns the land that you are living, that your shop exists on, or just the property of, meaning your products that you're selling, has been partially taken away by by us not having any economical use of this property anymore, or half of the economical use of this property has now gone away. These are extremely, extremely tough arguments to make, but in certain contexts, they have been successful. Will they be successful in this context? I have a feeling, although there's always a chance. I haven't, dug in deep into this issue of what type of arguments may survive and what they have survived, and done a 50 case study, which I would do if I was representing someone in this case. What I would say is, in general, this is going to be very tough uphill battle to say, look, the government should give us some money based upon our losses, based upon this partial taking. Lastly, where I do think there is a legitimate chance to at least maybe through lobbying efforts, or maybe it's through attending some of these sessions that are going to exist at the federal level, that before a rule is made, that people be allowed to comment on that rule, is to go in there and talk about, whether it's shop owners, and they're already doing this actually, to talk about, look, we are being impacted negatively by these rules, and these rules are ill-conceived. Now, in Michigan, there were testimony provided by smokers who said, look, we used to be smokers, we smoked cigarettes, and flavored e-cigarettes helped us get out of that. Meaning we use it as a way to get away from our habits of smoking tobacco, and now we are tobacco free completely. There was other testimony that goes along the lines of, look, this new law about not selling to under 18 just got implemented recently, so let's let that work out and see what happens. Maybe the high school students and middle school students may not continue to suffer from this. Maybe because of the ban, they'll be unable to get access to these products. So therefore, this current ban for flavored cigarettes is being rushed, and maybe we need more time to look at the impact of this recent law that got implemented in 2018. There was also testimony that look, the flavored cigarettes that we're selling does not contain this vitamin E. This is not nearly as dangerous as regular cigarettes or even alcohol. Now, it's a slippery slope when you start, not slippery slope, that's the wrong word, but it's not a good argument to say, look, ban alcohol too then. Why are you only picking on us? Well, they're equal. If the argument is that alcohol is worse than e-cigarettes, so we should allow both. Why is one being target? Yet you look at it from a layperson's point of view. Look, why is that being allowed? But when you look at it from a legal point of view, there is authority to ban e-cigarettes. How you look at how that correlates with the authority to ban other products, that's not how the law looks at it. Law looks at it, look, there's a law, it's enforced as written. If this is a health emergency, the government has the authority to protect the citizens. So we're going to do that. So yes, there's positive to these comments section, but the lobbying efforts and these comments, if they're done right, may allow some of the bans or some of the flavors to remain. Perhaps maybe there'll be a delay and allow more studies to come out before this ban goes in effect. But here's the thing: if I was a betting man and I had to advise any shop owners, I would say, look, start looking at other products, start looking at CBD, start looking at other things, how you can continue to sell and maybe advertise and put your advertising efforts elsewhere, so you can kind of recuperate some of the money you have lost. Um, I hope this first podcast was informative. I'm sure I blabbered along. I wasn't as articulate. Maybe I was talking too fast at times. So I hope I improved. But you get a general idea of what these podcasts are going to be. I will cover some smaller topics that won't be as lengthy in detail, meaning 5 to 10 minute podcast, which will touch upon whether it's how the First Amendment applies or certain issues that are current in the news. But I felt like this issue about flavored e-cigarettes had to go in more detail. So please give me your feedback and your comments. I would appreciate it. I want to improve. If I was annoying, I apologize. I will do my best to do better next time. Thank you, everyone.